This is ppc.zone August 2025, Advancing Through Automation. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. I use the pronouns she and her. I'm a Google Ads coach, an ex-Googler, and the founder of the Inside Google Ads course, podcast, and book. I created PPC Zone in 2022 to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. If you're watching rather than listening, you can see I have this very snazzy t-shirt on right now that shows that I am Team Automation all the way in Google Ads. This is one of 4 t-shirt designs you can now purchase from my merch store at jill.ca/merch, and all proceeds from shirt sales help us keep PPC Zone free and accessible to all. So after this live stream or after this recording, head on over to jyll.ca/merch to treat yourself to a little something Google Ads inspired. Our final speaker in the zone today is a PPC strategist with more than 7 years of experience helping brands grow through data-driven campaigns. I have had the pleasure of seeing her speak at HeroComp, and I'm thrilled that she's bringing her unique insights to the PPC Zone stage. We're about to hear her explain the PPC mistakes draining your performance in 2025. Please welcome Susan Yen.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for having me. So as we all, continue to be in this industry and we're seeing all these different changes, AI, PMAX, all the new types of campaigns, I think that there are a couple of things that continue to happen year after year and as Google changes in general. And one of them is the fact that there is still money that's being wasted and mistakes that are honestly that I think I've made a while ago, and I still it's an oversight that happens. So I really want to make sure that we're going through and we're keeping those things in mind, and then the mistakes that are made still in 2025 that we can, kind of stop doing, and maybe that'll help us alleviate some of that budget bleeding within our accounts. So as a team lead, I manage a group of people. And then I also have clients. I do a lot of audits. And this is something that I always say to my team, to the clients, is we always need to make sure to not ignore the basics. And one of those things is I've been doing this for 7 years, and I think some of the things that we do forget is, we go and we want to always be trying the new things, which is great. But sometimes the basics are things that we can carry on and implement in our AI Max, in our new Performance Max, our shopping campaigns, whatever it is that will help us. And one of the main things is just the campaigns type in general. So asking your clients questions like, what's the goal? What is the reason for this campaign? And therefore, that will help you choose the right campaign. If you don't have the right campaigns, let's say their goal is to get purchasers or people to buy a product, and you have Maxima, you have display or something. That might not be the best type of campaign for their goal. And the other thing is structures. Your structure matters. I call them the foundations of what you can build upon moving forward. If you have a shaky foundation, you really can't build on top of something. It's like your house, if you have shaky walls and then you have another developer come through and they're adding on top of that, that's not going to function. It's not going to hold up, and it's going to, at some point, probably be leaky. And that's where that waste comes in. And I already mentioned the proper goals and, of course, the alignments and the channels you want to be in. So not every single channel is going to work for particular businesses. There are certain channels that will just work for whether it is, there's Facebook, there's Google, there's Microsoft, there's Pinterest, TikTok, but we're not going to talk about that. Are making sure that you are choosing the right channel in order to meet the right people and the right audience at the right place. People have, everything is at their fingertips. So we want to make sure that we're aligning from the right campaigns, to the right goals, to the right people. And all of that is just, again, they're just the basics. As, when you're creating the campaigns, the first thing you see is the settings. You're choosing those campaigns. So make sure as you're going through is keep that stuff in mind. When you're doing your account audit, the first thing you should be doing is let's take a look at the foundation. Let's take a look at how this was set up. Was it set up correctly? Was it set up incorrectly? Where can we fix that area before you start at the above level and moving forward? The next thing is like the auto applies. As AI comes in full force, is that there will be a lot more auto applies that sometimes they are hidden and you have to be and do your due diligence. So with my team, as I'm going through and I'm doing audits and we have new clients that come through, is always making sure that the auto applies that have been automatically implemented is that you need to go through and make sure that you're shutting those things off or you're turning the ones that make the most sense to you. One of them is just in Google, an example, because that's what I'm going to use, is there are certain auto applies that work, but there are some that will waste your money. The ones that I usually choose and I will keep on is the keywords targetings, the removing of redundant keywords. Going across a campaign and having to go do that every single month is really annoying. So that is something that I like to keep on. The other one is removing non-serving keywords. If it isn't working and it's wasting your money, or you go through and the keyword costs a lot of money, but it's not giving you results, some of that stuff gets hidden in there. So making sure that you're going through and taking the stuff that doesn't work and trying out new stuff. We're in PPC. Our job is to consistently be trying new things and testing what works and what doesn't work. And the good thing is all this AI stuff is going to help us, but it's our job to go in there and make sure that we're kind of controlling the guardrails a little bit. And the other thing is removing conflicting keywords. This is easy to do if your structure is not correct. You can have several different campaigns and be bidding for the same keywords, or maybe it's the same account and you have the close variants and duplicates. They're going to compete. We don't need to be doing that stuff anymore. So if you again, that's like negative keywords as well. So if you have a keyword and somehow, you go through the search queries and your search terms and you've added negatives, you're blocking stuff that maybe you want in, but also just making sure that you're maintaining the stuff that you do want. So that's the stuff that are the three things I choose to always have on because they're housekeeping stuff. I want the software and Google and all that stuff to take care of for me. The other stuff like optimizing ad rotations, yeah, but I'll do that at the campaign level. Adding just random ads, yes, AI is getting better and these new ad copies that they're suggesting are better, but depending on your industry, you always want to make sure, I think Heidi said this really well earlier, is that relevancy. If you're at your keywords to the ad copy to the landing page, and sometimes just again, there's nuances to your business that you want to make sure that what is written in the ad copy makes the most amount of sense for what your business is trying to say. It's not just about the brand, it's how you communicate with your audience. And the other thing I don't really add on here is like using optimized targeting. I like to have control over everything. And with, AI growing, we're losing that control just a little bit. And if I can grab as much of that control as much as possible, I will. When you create a campaign, it's automatically going to have broad matches. Any keywords you add in there, it's usually always going to start with broad match. And we all know broad match is one of those things where we're all going back and forth on whether or not it's a good idea or whether or not it could be that silent killer. And if you can use broad match, if you have guardrails in place, I'm not saying that you can't use it all. Just be careful the way that you decide to use it and always go back in there and double check and make sure that you have the right match types for what you're trying to do. If you have the money to just go ahead and test out a bunch of broad matches without any guardrails, to which is all, and you can go ahead and test that out. And then you can let me know how that pans out. Location targeting is another one that people tend to just miss in general. We have that, in market versus interest or people that are there versus people that are interested in that area. That's a really important one. And just setting your locations. The amount of times I've seen an account and they were targeting the whole entire United States is kind of wild. So make sure that you're going in there and just double checking. And every single month, I always ask my clients, is our goal still the same? Are we still targeting the right places? Is our budget still the same? So that stuff is really important. The other thing, and we just talked about the match types. So making sure that you're choosing the right match types. If you decide to have broad match, go ahead, just go into that search term and make sure that the quality of traffic that is coming in makes the most amount of sense for your business. There's nothing worse than having a call with a client and going through that search terms or search queries and realizing that these are not the keywords that they want to be, showing up for the search terms. But then also, this is a great area to find those keywords, because as much as we're all really smart and we can come up with keywords to test out and stuff, is search terms is a place to figure out how your audience is actually communicating and what they're searching for. There are things, I moved from Boston to Austin, and there's things and words that are not the same. So that sometimes helps as well going through there. Auction insights. This whole entire insights area of Google is a really great area to figure out kind of what's going on in the accounts and keeping track of that. Audience signals is another one. Adding negative keywords. And just, your ad copy. That relevancy should be across the whole entire thing, from the campaign goals to your structures to the keywords and I guess forwards. It's just making sure all that stuff makes sense. Conversion tracking is a huge one. I probably should have started with conversion tracking, because the amount of times that this is an issue, because sometimes people don't actually know how to set it up, or they don't really know what it is. If you're talking to new clients and people that have been in this industry for a while, vice versa, is like, this is something that if it isn't set up correctly, then I'm not really sure how you can tell what's going on in the account. So with conversion tracking is, sometimes you'll find that they're optimizing for page views. If your goal is to get traffic to the site, then great. But if your goal is to get those leads, get those people to purchase things, that might not be the best thing to have counting as a conversion. So making sure that those are, actual completed events. Are the conversions being duplicated? I love to use GTM, because that just hosts everything for me. And then I move that into GA4, that I can organize everything there. Then I transfer it over to, whatever platform I'm using. But sometimes when you do transfer over to like Google, you'll see that, you've got some double counting going on there. Whenever you're looking at your conversion events and your conversion actions, if you're seeing an accelerated amount of conversions or leads, looks great. But sometimes it's because it's double counting, and that is not great in an area where PMAX is a goal-oriented campaign where you need to have conversions that work or that are correct, or else what you're basically doing is telling, the system, go ahead and go, continue maximizing on this particular event. That is incorrect. And then the other thing is, I always like to talk to my clients and ask them, what is the quality of traffic like? As much as we can hear, we're like, oh, the conversions are great, we're celebrating, the CPAs are great. But then the client says, well, it doesn't make any sense because that's not what we're getting. Yeah, these numbers are great, but internally, the metrics don't match up with what you're saying. So asking them for the quality of conversions that they're getting in is super important, because that communication, that back and forth communication, is what's going to help you decipher whether or not what you're actually doing is making sense for them. It is their money and their budget, so we want to make sure we're all on the same page. So that is something that I ask my clients every single month, is what was the quality of conversions like before I go into the metrics. I don't want to start with, let's go ahead and celebrate these numbers if it doesn't reflect what they're getting. So make sure to always double check. And then sometimes conversions break or things change, especially on the website. It's making sure that any new buttons or any new call to actions, whatever it is that is new on their website, that you are tracking that stuff. And metrics. So then the other thing is just making sure that, we're optimizing, making sure that we're paying attention to not just the conversions itself, but what's a CPC like? What is the conversion rate like? What's the click-through rates like? If your CPCs are really high, you need to make adjustments there. If there's, again, I think I mentioned a little bit earlier, if the keywords are $100 a click, not that certain industries doesn't usually happen. But if you have keywords that are really expensive and they're not giving you results, then you might need to take it out. But if I know I've gotten clients where they tell me, I want to go for this keyword. I'm willing to pay for it, which to me, if that's what you want to do and that's where they want to spend their money, sure. But then you're probably going to be also wasting a little bit of money there. And then, of course, your conversion rate. If you were getting those clicks and they're coming to the page and they're not really converting, then that's a landing page issue. And that's a different conversation. So what can we do? What's going on the site that they're looking around and they're not converting? And that's where you go into analytics. Let's take a look at the bounce rates. Let's take a look at these metrics, because what you don't want to do is spend a lot of money on a website that doesn't make sense or that isn't producing results. Because we can do all the work that we want to do, send people to the site, but ultimately our goal is to get them to purchase something, get them to complete an action on the site. So making sure you're looking at those metrics daily, maybe not daily, maybe once a week or so, is because you can't make too many changes in an account. You got to give it that time to learn. You got to give it the resources it needs. So basically, these are a list of your 2025 budget savers. So one of them is campaign account level negatives, brand exclusions, content exclusions, better shopping feeds. So making sure that you're going through, I keep this on my desktop pretty much as I'm going through it and I'm optimizing, I'm doing my monthly cleanup of the accounts, is all this stuff is on here. You can do content exclusions at the account, at the account level at this point, negatives at the account level or at the campaign level. Thank you, PMAX, for updating that. Thank God. Brand exclusions. You don't need to be coming up for your own brand. If you have a brand campaign, great, but try not to do that, especially with the PMAX stuff. I think PMAX is definitely TSAs on steroids. Gives you a ton of stuff. Make sure you're putting in those guardrails. And this whole entire list is going to be really helpful. Also, just first-party data for your targeting. You already have that data. Go ahead and use that. That's going to be higher quality leads and conversions. So I hope that whole list, it was a lot of stuff to go through, but just a recap is campaign types, settings, and auto applies, match types, conversion tracking, metrics that matter, and then just like the optimizations that make the most amount of sense. PPC, Google, they're introducing so many new things and so many new AI stuff, which is really great. The more you put in, the better, but also those guardrails are really what's going to help you not waste a lot of money. So the basics still matter and you can still use them at any point. And regardless of how far Google goes or how far, PPC has developed and changed, these are the things that I think we can keep and will help us continue to be better PPCers. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Susan, for sharing your unique perspective and insights with us in the zone. For folks watching or listening who are newer to Google Ads, this checklist is a great starting point for them. And then for folks like us who've been doing this a long time, it's a great reminder of some things we might want to go check in our accounts today. So thank you. If you'd like to connect with Susan Yan, you can find her on LinkedIn. Our next event will be on October 1st, 2025 at 10 a.m. Pacific, 1 p.m. Eastern. If you would like to apply to speak at an upcoming event, you can do so on our website at ppc.zone. I'm your host, Jill Saskin-Gales. You can follow me on LinkedIn to stay up to date on future events. And you can buy your very own Google Ads Inspire t-shirt like mine, if you so please, at jill.ca/merch. Thank you for supporting our mission to elevate new perspectives and insights in our industry. I look forward to seeing you next time in the zone.